Welcome to Health 2660. Here we don't just talk about health, we tell the stories that heal. Now please listen to the story. The ache started subtly, a persistent thrum behind my left eye, a dull companion I initially dismissed as the burden of too much screen time, or perhaps a fleeting weather pressure shift. It escalated, though morphing from a background annoyance into a relentless throbbing demand for attention. Sleep offered no escape. I'd wake with the pain already there, a malevolent guest settled in for the long haul. I tried everything I knew. Over-the-counter painkillers, cold compresses, darkened rooms. Even the ancient Chinese acupressure points I'd vaguely remembered from a PBS documentary years ago. Nothing touched it. My doctor, a young woman with perpetually tired eyes, named Dr. Anya Sharma, ran a battery of tests. MRI scans, blood work, neurological assessments, the whole shebang. Everything came back frustratingly normal. Tension headache, she declared finally, with the air of someone delivering a profound diagnosis, but secretly suspecting they were missing something crucial. Stress. Get more sleep. Maybe try yoga. Yoga. Right. I was a software engineer, a creature of code and caffeine, not chakras and chanting. My idea of exercise involved furiously clicking a mouse for hours on end. But the pain was relentless, a constant nag that eroded my focus, my productivity, and frankly, my sanity. Desperate, I Googled yoga for headaches, bracing myself for a deluge of Gwyneth Paltrow-esque wellness drivel. Instead, I stumbled upon a small, unassuming studio, a few blocks from my apartment. Inhale, exhale, evolve. The website featured pictures of ordinary people, not impossibly toned Instagram influencers, contorting themselves into vaguely recognizable poses. There was a class specifically designed for beginners, promising gentle movements and mindful breathing. My skepticism warred with my desperation. Desperation won. The studio was a haven of tranquility, a stark contrast to the chaotic energy of the city outside. Soft lighting, soothing music, the faint aroma of incense. It was all a bit much, frankly. My fellow yogis were a mixed bag, a wiry retiree with the flexibility of a rubber band, a pregnant woman radiating serenity, a couple of stressed-out young professionals who looked as uncomfortable as I felt. The instructor, a woman named Sarah with a warm smile and a voice like honey, guided us through a series of basic poses. Mountain pose, downward dog, child's pose. The names sounded ridiculous, but the movements felt surprisingly good. I was stiff, awkward, and acutely aware of my lack of coordination, but I pushed through, focusing on my breath, trying to quiet the relentless chatter in my mind. After the class, Sarah approached me. "How did you find it?" she asked. "Humbling," I admitted, rubbing my aching muscles. "But strangely relaxing." "Yoga is a journey," she said. "It's not about perfection. It's about showing up, being present, and listening to your body." I nodded, unsure what to make of her pronouncements. But something about her genuine warmth, the peaceful atmosphere of the studio, and the lingering sense of calm in my body made me sign up for another class. I became a regular. Twice a week, I'd trade my keyboard for a yoga mat, my coding glasses for a dimly lit room filled with the sound of gentle breathing. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. My flexibility improved. My balance became steadier. My mind, once a constant torrent of thoughts and anxieties, began to quiet down. And then one morning, I woke up without a headache. Not a hint of pain, not a lingering throb, just a clear, bright openness in my head. I was stunned. Could it be? Could yoga, of all things, have actually worked? I didn't dare celebrate just yet. I knew that headaches could be fickle, that they could disappear as mysteriously as they arrived. But as the days passed, the pain remained absent. I felt lighter, more energetic, more focused. I was sleeping better, eating healthier, and even, dare I say, smiling more often. Yoga, it seemed, had not only alleviated my headaches, but had also unlocked something deeper within me. It had taught me to slow down, to breathe, to be present in my body. It had reminded me that I was more than just a collection of code and anxieties, that I was a human being capable of feeling, of connecting, of finding peace within myself. I started to explore other aspects of wellness. I began meditating, even just for a few minutes each day, focusing on my breath, letting go of my thoughts. I experimented with healthy recipes, trading processed foods for fresh fruits and vegetables. I even started taking walks in nature, something I hadn't done since I was a child. My transformation was gradual but profound. I was no longer just managing my pain. I was actively cultivating my well-being. I was taking care of my body, my mind, and my spirit. I was healing. One evening, after a particularly restorative yoga class, Sarah approached me with a suggestion. "You know, David," she said, "you've come so far. Have you ever considered becoming a yoga teacher?" I laughed. "Me, a yoga teacher? You've got to be kidding." "I'm serious," she said. "You have a natural ability to connect with people. You're patient, compassionate, and you have a deep understanding of the practice. I think you'd be a great teacher." I was flattered, but the idea seemed preposterous. I was a software engineer, not a guru. I didn't have the right look, the right voice, the right anything. "I appreciate the thought, Sarah," I said, "but I don't think it's for me." "Just think about it," she said. "You never know what you're capable of until you try." I dismissed the idea, but it lingered in the back of my mind. Could I really become a yoga teacher? Could I share the healing power of yoga with others? The next few weeks were a whirlwind of self-doubt and internal debate. I talked to my friends, my family, even Dr. Sharma. Most of them thought I was crazy. "You're going to quit your job to become a yoga teacher?" my best friend Mark asked incredulously. "Are you having a midlife crisis?" But Dr. Sharma was surprisingly supportive. "I've seen a remarkable change in you, David," she said. "If yoga makes you happy, then go for it. Life is too short to be stuck in a job you hate." Her words resonated with me. I was good at my job, but I wasn't passionate about it. I was making a good living, but I wasn't truly fulfilled. Yoga, on the other hand, had ignited a spark within me, a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. Finally, after weeks of agonizing, I made a decision. I enrolled in a yoga teacher training program. It was a daunting undertaking, a rigorous course that required countless hours of study practice and self-reflection. But I was determined to succeed. The training was transformative. I learned about the history and philosophy of yoga, the anatomy and physiology of the body, the art of teaching and communication. I deepened my own practice, pushing myself beyond my comfort zone, exploring new poses and techniques. I also discovered a community of like-minded individuals, people who were passionate about yoga, about health, about well-being. We supported each other, encouraged each other, and challenged each other to grow. The training wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, moments of frustration, moments when I wanted to give up. But I persevered, driven by my passion for yoga and my desire to share its healing power with others. After months of hard work, I finally graduated from the program. I was a certified yoga teacher. It was one of the proudest moments of my life. I didn't quit my job right away. I started teaching yoga classes in the evenings and on weekends, slowly building a following. It was challenging juggling my full-time job with my teaching responsibilities, but I loved it. I loved seeing the look of relief on my students' faces after a challenging pose, the sense of calm that washed over them during Savasana, the final resting pose. I loved sharing my knowledge and experience, helping them to connect with their bodies, to quiet their minds, to find their own inner peace. Eventually, the demand for my classes grew to the point where I could no longer juggle both jobs. I had a decision to make. It was a difficult decision, but I knew what I had to do. I quit my job as a software engineer and became a full-time yoga teacher. It was the best decision I ever made. Now I spend my days sharing the healing power of yoga with others. I teach classes, workshops, and retreats. I work with individuals, groups, and organizations. I help people of all ages and abilities to find their own path to wellness. I'm no longer just managing my pain. I'm actively helping others to manage theirs. I'm no longer just living. I'm thriving. I still get headaches from time to time, but now I know how to manage them. I know how to listen to my body to quiet my mind, to find my inner peace. And sometimes, when I'm teaching a particularly challenging class, or when I'm guiding my students through a particularly restorative pose, I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror. And I see a yoga teacher, a healer, a guide, and I smile. The journey wasn't linear. It wasn't always pretty. There were setbacks, plateaus, and moments where I questioned everything. One of the biggest hurdles came unexpectedly a few years after I'd established myself as a yoga teacher. I started experiencing chronic fatigue, the kind that wasn't just tiredness, but a bone-deep exhaustion that clung to me like a shroud. I'd wake up feeling like I hadn't slept, my muscles ached, and my mind was foggy. Teaching, which had once been a source of energy and joy, became a Herculean effort. I went back to Dr. Sharma, who ran another round of tests. Again, everything came back normal. Possible chronic fatigue syndrome. She said, her brow furrowed. There's no real cure, just management. Rest, pacing yourself, stress reduction. Rest, pacing, stress reduction. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was a yoga teacher, for goodness sake. I was supposed to be the embodiment of those things. I tried everything. I cut back on my teaching schedule. I took more time for myself. I experimented with different diets, supplements, and therapies. Some things helped a little, but nothing made a significant difference. The fatigue persisted, casting a shadow over my life. I started to feel like a fraud. How could I teach others about wellness when I myself was struggling to stay afloat? My students noticed. They saw the weariness in my eyes, the strain in my voice. Some of them stopped coming to my classes. I couldn't blame them. Who wants to learn from someone who's clearly not at their best? I was on the verge of giving up, of admitting defeat, of going back to coding, to something predictable and less demanding. But then one day, something shifted. I was lying in bed too exhausted to even get up when I started to focus on my breath. I closed my eyes and just breathed, slowly, deeply, intentionally. And as I breathed, I realized something. I wasn't just breathing to rest. I was breathing to connect with my body, with my spirit, with the universe. I realized that my fatigue wasn't just a physical ailment. It was a symptom of something deeper, a disconnect. a disconnection from my own inner source of energy and vitality. I had been so focused on fixing my fatigue that I had forgotten to nurture myself. I had been so busy trying to be a perfect yoga teacher that I had forgotten to be a human being. From that moment on, I started to approach my fatigue differently. I stopped fighting it. I stopped trying to fix it. I started to embrace it. I started to see my fatigue as a teacher that was showing me where I was out of balance, where I was neglecting myself, where I was disconnected from my own inner source of strength. I started to listen to my body more carefully. I started to say no to things that drained me. I started to prioritize activities that nourished me. I started to spend more time in nature. I started to reconnect with my creative passions. I started to cultivate deeper relationships with the people I loved. Slowly, gradually, my energy began to return, not all at once, but in small increments. I started to feel more alive, more vibrant, more connected. I started to teach again, but this time I taught from a different place. I taught from a place of vulnerability, of authenticity, of self-compassion. I shared my struggles with my students. I told them about my fatigue, about my doubts, about my fears. And to my surprise, they responded with compassion and understanding. They saw me not as a perfect guru, but as a fellow human being, struggling and growing alongside them. My classes became more intimate, more supportive, more transformative. We learned together. We healed together. We grew together. I realized that my fatigue, which I had initially seen as a curse, had actually been a gift. It had taught me to be more human, more authentic, more compassionate. It had taught me to connect with others on a deeper level. It had taught me the true meaning of healing. It wasn't about fixing what was broken. It was about embracing what was. And in embracing what was, I found a new level of wholeness, a new level of peace, a new level of joy. Years later, I was leading a yoga retreat in the mountains of Nepal. We were a small group, a mix of experienced yogis and curious beginners. We spent our days practicing yoga, meditating, hiking, and exploring the local culture. One evening, as we sat around a campfire sharing stories and laughter, one of my students, a young woman named Emily, turned to me and said, "David, you've inspired me so much. You've shown me that it's possible to find healing even in the midst of suffering." I smiled. "Thank you, Emily," I said. "But the truth is, I'm still on my own journey. I'm still learning, still growing, still healing." She looked at me with a knowing smile. "Isn't that the point?" she said. "The journey never ends." I nodded. She was right. The journey never ends. It's a lifelong process of learning, growing, and healing. And as I looked around at the faces of my students, illuminated by the flickering flames of the campfire, I realized that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I was a yoga teacher, a healer, a guide, and I was home. But even home can hold secrets, echoes of the past, that resonate in unexpected ways. Back in my small apartment, nestled amongst the familiar clutter, I received a letter. A thick, cream-colored envelope with a return address I didn't recognize, the Hemlock Sanatorium, Willow Creek, CA. A shiver ran down my spine. My grandmother Clara had spent her final years in such a place, though much further east. I hadn't thought of her in years, not since the will was read, and the dusty old house, my only inheritance, was sold. Why would a sanatorium be contacting me now? The letter felt heavy in my hand, a weight of unspoken history threatening to spill over. With trepidation, I tore open the envelope, the scent of aged paper, and something else, something vaguely medicinal rising to meet me. What truths long buried were about to surface? What forgotten chapter of my family's story was about to be revealed? And how would it reshape my own journey of healing? Health 2660. Thanks you for listening. We'll see you in the next video. And until then, be kind to yourself.